Hello and welcome to DCP SideQuest episode number 141. We got a very special Memorial Day podcast. Not that it's connected to Memorial Day, but it's being recorded on Memorial Day. So first off, happy Memorial Day. Special podcast with James Silva, developer for Salt and Sanctuary and Salt and Sacrifice.
Hey,
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. So,
how often do you mix up those names? When you're talking about them?
I'm really good at it, but
okay.
I don't know if I'm sure I've done it once, but I'm actually really good at it. But I'm pretty used to getting emails and
swapping the two.
Salt and Sacrifice launched, I'll get email requests for keys to Salt and Sanctuary, and kind of like,
and you're like,
oh yeah, you want a key for the 6-year-old game? See what we
can do.
Yeah, I'm really bad with it.
You want a
really
Vita code?
Yeah, but there's no good way to abbreviate it. I mean, these are the types of things I should have thought about before. But
SNS, yeah.
Could you do SNS2? I mean, it's a sequel, right? Like it's a correct sequel.
It's in the same series, right? So in terms of chronology, like I'm not going to say if it comes before or after, but
oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a successor. I have seen it called SNS2.
That's because they can't remember which one it is, so they're just like, yeah, this the second one. No.
Which again comes back to me for calling it Salt and Sacrifice.
So actually, let's get into the details on that. Explain to people if they haven't played it yet, like what is Salt and Sanctuary and Sacrifice? The style of game.
Okay, yeah. So Salt and Sanctuary, when I first started working on it, I was like, okay, it's like a dark fantasy platformer, and then eventually I was like, it's 2D Dark Souls, and I was like, oh, okay, it's 2D Dark Souls, okay. So yeah, I mean, Salt and Sanctuary is very much 2D Dark Souls. It was 2016 when it released. I mean, it really tried to capture a lot of the feel about just how you have really diverse play styles based on how you equip your character, and really giving you enough options to really screw yourself over, or to be like, oh my, I made like a super powerful beast that can just melt bosses. So yes, Salt and Sacrifice. The idea that I was trying to experiment with the play style and the universe, very much more of a you got Monster Hunter in my Dark Souls kind of situation. So it still has that Metroidvania progression, but there's the intent was put a lot of replayability in there about these mage hunts. There are these mages roaming the world, and they're sort of the embodiments of elemental chaos, and their existence is a mystery. Your role is one of a marked inquisitor who's been tasked with hunting mages, and that's through the pursuit of your inquisitor's task. You should come closer to finding out the truth behind these things.
Are the mages like randomly put on the map, or is there like?
So there's a there are ones that will roam. There are like preset named mage hunts where mages who have names and stories and setting in this world. It's basically like a main quest style thing. So you'll have these named mages to kill, and those will typically they're placed in such that you're unlocking areas by progressing on named mage kills. As you kill named mages, roaming mages will start to appear more and more in the world, and you can go kill them too, but they're more just like an ambient problem to deal with. But I mean, the game does kind of come back to a lot of farming. So you can it's like if you got some pyromancer gear from killing a pyromancer, but you want to like fill it out with the rest of the gear for that set, you can always go after some roaming mages.
Yeah, I found it was very it was rewarding to go and kill multiple, obviously, and even the little guys as well, because they're dropping, or the spawns, they're always dropping stuff that you need for your craftables. So I really enjoyed that loop on there. Before we get further into Sacrifice, going back to Sanctuary, did you have a problem with people calling it 2D Souls like, or was it like okay, yeah,
No, let's see. I, the emergence of the word Souls-like was really good in the long run, I think.
okay,
Because
Yeah.
when the idea originally was like, let's see if this works, right? Let's see if this playstyle works.
yeah,
And when you kind of just bring this out and you're like, here's this game, like, love Dark Souls, want to imagine if that kind of thing would work in a 2D setting. Um, you have a lot of people saying like, you're just making Dark Souls. Like, what is this? You can't do this. This is not okay. And eventually, like, more and more developers were like, this is a great idea, and it just became very much a more common thing. And then you start to just see the term get thrown around as Souls likes, which is yeah, it's great, right? Because it's like, no, it's just this is a Souls like. That's what it
It
is.
always starts like that, though, right? It's like it always one game kind of blows open like a new kind of play mechanic or something, and then there's a bunch of like Doom clones, and then
Oh yeah,
eventually you drop the Doom clone about it, and now it's just
Yeah.
an FPS, right?
Zelda
right.
clone, you know,
Yeah, I
Sure.
mean, I remember in the late '90s, I guess early 2000s, it was Quake Killers. It was all like,
Yeah.
what's the Quake Killer gonna be? And it turned out it was Half-Life was the Quake Killer, and then that was the end of the word Quake Killer.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
true.
funny.
Yeah.
There's always the Destiny killer at some point. The next
Yeah.
Destiny
Yeah.
killer is
Every
coming.
Until
time.
Anthem, then Anthem killed
Yeah.
Destiny. And we've all been celebrating ever since.
Oh, Anthem.
In terms of
Um,
development, so like you're a small development team, right?
yeah. So it's the whole team. It's me and my buddy Shane. We met through we met through an IRC channel a long time ago, but we've been playing
Nice.
D&D together online for a while. And I showed him sort of this early because he just we started a new studio to make Salt and Sacrifice. I almost did it. At some point in this podcast, I am gonna say Salt and Sanctuary. I'm gonna meet. Anyway, so we started Devoured Studios together. And basically he was like, hey, this game you're making, what if we make it online? Because I absolutely suck at netcode. If you are familiar with any of my back catalog, I always had netcode for Xbox 360 games, and it was always very, very bad. It was always like just enough to get it to pass cert, but then just have things fall apart from there. Shane is a really good netcoder, and he was like, why don't we do this? At first I thought he was kind of joking, and eventually we talked about it more and more. And yeah, we got netcode working. Turns out it is a beast to make work. Every time you play a game online and it just works,
Magic.
appreciate that.
Right?
Give the concept gratitude, because there was a horrible ordeal that went through that. But
when
yeah,
was that
yeah.
timeline when you guys started doing that?
2019, like late
Gotcha.
2019,
Yeah.
right before lockdown. So this is a pandemic game. We
Wow.
started right before lockdown, and then I think we've actually seen each other in person. We I live like 40 minutes north of Seattle. He's still in the greater Seattle area. We've seen each other twice since this has begun,
Wow.
in person, because it's like between lockdown and just, I mean, it's the travel.
Yeah.
But
Has
yeah, so
it
that was
been?
2019. Yeah.
But it's been okay though, like developing online, like remote and all that. No, I mean, I'm sure there's issues, but you guys have clearly been able to be successful at it, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, mostly like, we'll like hop on Discord chat, but mostly it's just Discord text,
Hmm.
that we just go back and forth. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was yeah, it was like 2.5 years of just, let's see what happens here. And by the end of it, I mean, I'm gonna get so much trouble with the developer, the high table of game developers, but we were putting in like 12, 14-hour days at the end of it, just to get through,
Mm-hmm.
just to get through cert, through launch.
Make deadlines and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to talk about, or I'd like to highlight today, is like the kind of the solo / small development experience, life cycle, and all that stuff, and just tie it also with Salt and Sanctuary, with Salt and Sacrifice, and all that. Because so what all do you do specifically? Which I know is going to be like almost everything.
What do you do?
But it'd be nice. It'd be nice for budding developers to hear like the process. Like, what is it that you design and create? Like, the engine and all that stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, it used to be kind of me just making the whole game by myself. And Shane coming on to do network.
That's with
And,
Salt and Sanctuary.
Yes, I didn't do. I mean, I've always had help with everything.
Sure.
Here and there. But yeah, I did most of Salt and Sanctuary by myself. I had a lot of help with writing. Actually, Sanctuary and Sacrifice with writing.
Mhm.
The music for Sanctuary I did myself. The music for Sacrifice I got a friend of mine who's the composer for Guild Wars 2, McLean Dean.
Awesome.
Oh
He's a
wow. Nice.
Cool.
super talented composer. He classes up the game so much. But yeah, so the engine is all me. I mean it's built on it's built on a very old now framework. It was the XNA framework that was like an Xbox
Oh, wow.
360 thing, and
Yeah.
then it's been open sourced since then. And actually, we have it running on like a Unity hybrid type thing that Shane did all the engineering. So he's a much better coder than me. So I've been kind of able to hack games together, and like he knows the right way to do it. So it's been a a bit of a learning experience there.
So you built it in
And
an old XNA framework and then connected it with Unity for
yeah,
it to go through the standard channels of the platforming, right?
yeah, it makes I'd say like it makes like multi-platform a lot easier, but
Mhm.
there's there's caveats everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean there are animation tools that I use to animate characters, and I made those tools myself. Like
Wow.
the tool to make the map, the game world, I made that myself, and then I make the map in that tool.
Awesome.
So that kind of stuff, and I did all the art, all the animation.
Wow.
That's
it was
incredible.
it was it was a lot of work. I mean, there's when I go to like export, every single character is made up of a bunch of little sprites. Every map's made up of a bunch of little sprites, and I have a tool that is used to define where all the sprites are laid out on a sheet. And there's like 25,000 of them or something. It's all these
Oh my God.
they're all hand drawn by me. It's like you get to the end of it and you're just like, there's an insane amount of content. What have I done to myself, and why? But yeah, I'm proud of it. But definitely
I
it's a lot of work.
hearing it like how much you've done from scratch with creating the game with Salt and Sanctuary, how did you feel about the success of that game? Because it was kind of like you had help, but it's largely you creating this game, and it's largely accepted by a lot of Souls fans as like the best 2D Souls kind of experience. So what was that like?
I don't know.
It's pretty crazy.
It's really hard to say. I mean, it's hard to wrap my mind around. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of it comes to being in the right place at the right time, and so many of the game's rough edges are given a lot more space to be. It's just like, why is this weird? Why does that work that way? Because it is. As opposed to, why does this work that way? Because the developer screwed up. There's a really fine line, and I think Salt and Sanctuary, it just appeared in some space where it got more passes because about around spots where things were just not polished in the way where they could have been. Um, but yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, like I said, it's kind of hard to wrap my mind around the success it got. More so because as a developer, all of the flaws.
Sure.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was a. Oh, geez, I could go on about the flaws too. That was like headed into release. That was rough. I mean, I remember when I like leading up to launch, I was like, well, I probably have to localize this, because previously I'd only worked with Microsoft on Xbox 360, and it was every title was first party published is that for, I don't know, but every title Microsoft published, so they would do localization. And for Salt and Sanctuary, I was like, I mean, that was PS4. That was when self-publishing was a thing, when it was a new thing. And I was like, I guess I have to localize this because what that's the way we always did it, right? And leading up to launch, I was like, well, I don't, I have so many things to work on. I don't have anything ready yet. I'm just gonna hook this up to like as a placeholder to Google Translate all of these, all of this text, and then I can make sure it's rendering correctly, and then I can get around to figuring out how to pay for localization. Who knows how much that costs, right? And then that's what we can do. And I told I guess the account rep I was working with at Sony, I was like, yeah, I have Google translated languages in there, and he was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, but I can't release that way, can I? And he was like, I'm sure you can. It's fine. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I released that way, and I started like an international crisis. There were so many people were so upset with the quality of localization.
It
And
cannot possibly worse than what we got from like SNES RPGs coming from Japan. It can't be worse than that.
that was my logic, was like, this is gonna be the all your base are belong to us. But no, I think it was worse than that. I think you're being optimistic. And yeah. So and then the game was like successful enough where it was like, okay, wait, it's done well enough. I can go back and pay for localization, which, like, I mean, people, when you look at a game like Salt and Sanctuary, the dollar amounts you imagine for what goes into creating it are probably a lot lower than so. I think the total cost of Loc for all the languages was between like $60,000 and $80,000. Which, like, if you look at like a Kickstarter for a 2D side scroller, you'd imagine that as like more than the cost of the whole side scroller.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was
How many languages is that?
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Oh yeah, 12, I think.
12. Okay.
12.
Yeah, and
Do you just send it to like one company to do all of those, or do you have to like split? Like, do you have to like get a Japanese company and
it depends.
I don't even know. Like,
yeah. So there are companies that do most or all, and then there are also a lot of individual contractors that you can just go straight to. So actually with Japanese for Salt and Sanctuary, that was all through Kakahashi Games, which is they do Loc and then marketing. So that was actually a lot. That wasn't included in the $60,000-$80,000. That was a whole other thing. But most of them, you can find like one organization that'll do it all. With and then it becomes a whole new thing too, because the game comes out and you're like, I think this looks fine, and then someone comes back to you and they're like, the Spanish is awful, and you're like, I had no part in that. Like, I have no like, I wish I knew enough Spanish to know how you feel right now, but perils of being a small studio, I guess.
Yeah.
And the success as well. Like the more success, the more eyeballs, the more people pointing out things that you might not have known, right?
Oh yeah. We just found out in Salt and Sacrifice that light damage, you have like fire damage, cold damage, poison damage. Light damage in French was translated light, like, as opposed to heavy. So that was, those
So
sorts
they're
of
like,
things.
the light attacks. Got it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
different thing.
right.
Very different.
Yeah, yeah. So those sorts of things, and they come back. I mean, these past 2 weeks, because we launched the 10th, so it's been 20 days since launch. Yeah, it's a lot of like little issues and big issues. But just we're focusing on like, stability and just technical issues that we can go through right now. And then
you just did 2 platforms, right? For this initial launch?
You have 3, I guess: PS4, PS5,
right,
and
yeah.
PC and EGS.
Yeah. Is that are you planning on doing more platforms beyond that after a certain point, or is it unless you can say for legal reasons?
Yeah, I mean, we can't really talk about that.
Got it. Okay, yeah.
It's understandable.
I'd imagine though it helps you kind of contain things, just focusing on a couple platforms, right? Right.
super helpful for that. Yeah, because already like we're putting up patches. It's just, you know, I mean, it's patching on console historically has always been a much greater undertaking than patching on
Mhm.
PC. It's way better now than it has been in the past, but you know, it's still PC. You can have a patch up in like 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just managing between the two, and Shane's doing all that. It is awesome that we were able to distribute work with that kind of stuff, because it used to be
Nice.
I was the only developer, and it was just really hard to kind of
Yeah, to juggle.
keep all that
Yeah,
straight.
absolutely.
Yeah.
In terms of engine stuff, so like you said on Salt and Sanctuary, you know, it kind of had like cobbled together type of thing from the past. Did you continue with that, like the same stuff, or did you adopt newer tools that are available today
Yeah,
for engine stuff?
it's a lot of the same, like the character format, the map
Hmm.
format. A lot of that's the same. Yeah, it's pretty much the same stuff. I mean, the big
Cool.
difference is now we have it also running in Unity too.
Got
But I
it.
think a lot of the collision code, and that's
Hmm.
it's another like sort of for better or for worse type things,
Hmm.
because they're actually, you know what, I think I fixed one that's probably still in Sanctuary, where you can like, if you land just right on a staircase, you can get stuck in a stair. I think I got that one fixed now. Collision code is the worst. I still don't feel good about it. It's always a problem.
Having to be under the hood and writing that yourself has got to be a real pain as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's 2D. That's, you know, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine 3D. It's a whole new situation.
Yeah.
I'm not good at 3D math. There's a whole math to it. I'm not good at it. I'm just, you know, I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm gonna you know, recognize and celebrate the things that I'm good at, and I'm just gonna admit that I'm not good at other things. That's
Nice.
yeah, 3D math is one of those. Networking is another one. I guess I'm okay at hacking together a 2D Dark Souls, and maybe I'll keep up at it, but you know, but
So with Sacrifice, you said you guys started in 2019, right?
yeah, yeah.
What I guess what was the beginning? What sparked the idea? And
You know what?
how did it progress beyond the
Yeah, I mean,
idea, you know?
it's an idea I had geez, I had it before I started on Salt and Sanctuary, like way back when. Originally, I wanted to do like every now and then I'm like, I want to make a procedural game, and I've never done one. I've like prototyped a few, but I've never done one well. And this is also not a procedural game. But the idea with this procedural game I had in my head was like, what if it was these procedurally generated mage towers where you know, you're chasing this mage through the tower. They summon things that are specific to that element type, and then it culminates in a boss battle. And the tower would always be procedurally generated. And that was like, it was an idea I had in, must have been like 2013 or 12 or so.
Oh, wow.
And then it just even, yeah, because I started the engine that became Salt and Sanctuary. Originally, like I had code that was like, it would like take like map segments and block them together
Mm,
procedurally. Like that code's in there somewhere, but it's all ripped out, and it's all, you know, it's just um but yeah, and there were like and now it's like going back to me. I'm like, I remember that game. So and there'd be like area transitions from like, all right, you get to the end of this room, you know, transition to the next room.
mhm,
Because it was like how, you know, rooms are contained in like a classic Metroidvania, you know, and the way they're depicted on the map. Um, but yeah, so that idea started that way, and then, you know, I mean, like I said, procedural generation, like I've never been like, it feels like a really good idea, and then when I start to work on it, I'm just like, nah, the way this is going. But I was, you know, I was like, well, what if I just build out the whole world, just, you know, as
mhm.
is customary, you know, that, and that became Salt and Sanctuary. But the idea of like hunting mages, like that kind of stuck with me, and
Yeah,
you know, I prototyped a couple games after Salt and Sanctuary, and and then at some point, just started working on what became Sacrifice.
nice.
Thought, let's bring back the mage idea, I think getting into Monster Hunter between there was kind of, definitely an influence too, because it was like,
Influence
oh
it,
yeah,
yeah.
the mage tower idea, but what if we took that and put it into like a Monster Hunter type thing? Uh,
Yeah, the whole crafting loop and the hunting, go on this
Yeah.
go on the hunt for that. Definitely you can feel inspiration in a good way about that in Salt and Sacrifice.
So Sultan's.
I was about to. I was close.
you know one loop that inspired it, but it was a game that I so desperately wanted it to be better, was Castlevania Harmony of Despair. Do you remember that one from it was an Xbox Live Arcade game for Xbox 360, and it was all the Castlevania assets from like all of the 3DS game, DS 3D.
It was the
Where, like,
multiplayer one, right?
it
Where
was
you
the
could play
multiplayer one.
multiplayer.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
the best parts from like Order of Ecclesia and Portrait of Ruin and Harmony of Despair. No, that was, what was the other one? It'll come back to me.
And all those gibberish names that kind of start to blend
They
in
do
together.
blend, yeah. Harmony of Despair is the one I'm talking about, because it resolves to Castlevania HD, because HD was the buzzword back in Xbox
It was,
360.
yeah.
HD.
But yeah, it was a multiplayer Castlevania where you're like, you start off a mission, you have like, and they had a time limit, and that part kind of sucked. But you'd have like 15 minutes to like, run through this castle and defeat a boss together, and I really excited. I love those games, and I really wanted that to be just so good, and well, for one thing, the player count just dropped off really fast, and then and then there's
Yeah.
no reason to play it.
That game got terrible reviews when it came out, but I feel like it's got like an appreciation now that it never had when it was like new. Like people
Right.
remember it fondly and are playing it now, but I don't.
Are they really
like when
playing
it? Yeah. I bet I've watched 3 videos on YouTube like appreciating that game in the last like year or two. Yeah.
No kidding. I'm gonna check that out. That was I've got some memories with that. Like I played it with random people a few times, but pretty quickly, it was like just, you'd have it searching for people for like 25 minutes, and you're just like, things happening.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
The Castlevania series has been through some ups and downs, that's for sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Got a question on the landscape of indies and how it's changed. Like you said, you started it in the 360 era.
Yeah. 2007 is when I got my break in
Nice.
the industry. And that was Microsoft was like, we're gonna try. They made this framework called XNA, and they were like, what do we do with this? I don't know. So one of the ideas about what to do with it, because I think they were hoping originally that AAA devs would use it, and AAA devs weren't really interested. So they were like, all right, what if we try this for indies somehow? I think, and this might be totally not how it worked at all. This might just be my headcanon on the. So they had a contest where it was like, all right, everyone try making a game in XNA, and I made this game called The Dishwasher Dead Samurai. Actually, you can see in the mirror that I have a poster of it, which is actually right in front of me up there. So I made this game while I was like finishing college, and I didn't imagine. I completely didn't imagine it was gonna do anything, just because it's like I'm just some dude, right?
I didn't know you made that game, and that game was fly as hell. That game was cool. I had no idea you made that game.
I have a legacy. I
remember hearing about that game on the Joystick podcast, like way back. Remember Joystick?
Oh yeah.
They had a podcast and they were talking about that game. So I downloaded it on the Xbox 360. I fucking loved it, man. It was great. It was so weird.
That's awesome. So yeah, that was the game I made while I was in getting through college, and then like I sent it off to the contest. I graduated college. I was like, I guess I have to get a real job now. I got a real job doing like Java programming for like couple months, and then Microsoft reached out and they were like, hey, we're gonna announce the winner of the contest. You wanna come see who won? It's gonna be in Redmond. And I'm like, I was living in the East Coast then.
Was that like a subtle hint that you won the contest?
And they're like, do you want to just come and see the winner?
I still could not read it as such. I was so convinced that like, no, there's no way. And they're like, what if we, pay for your ticket and hotel and all that? And I was like, that's super weird, but okay, I guess they really want me to see who wins this
Microsoft, these
contest.
weirdos.
We gotta have somebody for that like disappointed shot shot when the winner goes up to the stage, right? Otherwise, it's like it loses the drama.
Oh man, but yeah. So that was my break, and that was 2007, and the game launched in 2009. And
You did win that contest then, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry to keep
Just
it in
clarify.
suspense. Yeah. They even so they even and they did this like fun gotcha that like played into my insecurities just so perfectly, because it came down to like me and this other guy, and it was a Microsoft Games convention called Game Fest, and we were out there for like the some, I don't know if it was the keynote or part of it, or but so it was me and this other guy, and we're demoing our games in front of this audience of about probably hundreds of people, and then they're like, and the winner is the other guy, and I was like, why did they do this to me? and then they're like, but you know what? We like both games win, like both games get a contract, and it was just, oh boy, what a what a
They're like, you really did fly me out here to tell me that I
It
lost.
sounds cruel to me.
Yep.
Was
That's
that
wild.
part of like the Xbox Live Arcade days when everything had to be like under like 56 megabytes or
Oh,
what was that?
50, yeah.
50?
Yeah. No, yeah. I think Dishwasher Dead Samurai was one of the first games that they allowed to go past the limit.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. They upped it to 150, and then Castle Crashers broke the next limit.
Oh man, Castle
Wow,
Crashers
Castle
was a great
Crashers,
game. I
yeah.
forgot about that game.
Right.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it was such a, like, for me, it was such a golden era, because it was
Oh, it was the
you know.
Xbox 360, like the live arcade time. There's so much cool stuff happening. Remember they did like the summer of arcade?
Yeah, I
And, like
think
it'd just be like it seemed
Well,
like
yeah.
every week there was something awesome to play.
right. Yeah, Dishwasher was in Days of Arcade, I think. That was,
Days of arcade.
yeah, I think that's what it was. It got in a promo though. I mean, that was incredible for me. I mean, it was, I went from like being like I could be a game developer to like, oh, it's happened. It was such
Wow.
a moment.
That's wild.
There's
For
a,
Wow,
console
wild
kids,
ride.
you didn't see a lot of indie stuff on consoles before that. Before Xbox started doing that.
that
That was really new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Behemoth did, they kind of led that with, you had to like release it on disc before then, because they did that with Alien Hominid. They released that on disc for GameCube and PS2, I think. And
Did
and then
Dishwasher never get a hard release? So it's physical release?
no.
Oh, that's too
No.
bad.
Yeah, the only physical
Briar
release
would be buying that right now.
You're
eBay
going on
ring?
Amazon this second trying to find it.
Oh man, yeah, the only physical release, it was Salt and Sanctuary for Switch, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, that
And
goes
then
for
and
about
then also,
$100 right now on eBay. Just FYI.
oh, no kidding. Limited Run Games also had one for PS4 and for Vita.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on
Wonder
Vita.
if will we see a repeat action of the limited run release?
Oh, possibly. I mean,
Too early to know.
yeah, it's kind of, that's like a weird part about being just a tiny indie studio is everyone kind of, I mean, not saying you do this, but like every, like the broad everyone, that they assume that like you have a very solid release strategy, and it's like, oh yeah, and we're gonna do digital, and like here are the pre-order bonuses. It's like, no, we barely got through cert. we're just trying to like get the bare minimum out there to get through this next couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty much looking at it like, all right, if Salt and Sacrifice, I almost did it. If Salt and Sacrifice, if it does well, if that's to justify a physical release, like we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just we'll kind of hang our heads in shame and work on the next game, right?
How does that work? Would you like approach a company like Limited Run Games or something like that and say, hey, we'd like to do a physical release, or did they come to you? Like, how does that work?
Either
or does
way.
it work both ways?
Yeah, either way. Yeah, I met them at PAX one year because Douglas from Limited Run Games came over and said he likes my stuff, and
Cool.
let's do it. And yeah, I think it was painless, which is rare in game development.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all seem like good people, like fans of video games over there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's
At
important.
least externally, they do.
I don't know about any sordid secrets that they keep, in case that's yeah, no, they're good guys.
Good guys.
I was gonna say, so you have like 15 years of basically indie development under your belt,
Isn't
right?
that weird?
That's amazing. And also,
It's
like,
amazing.
that's you kind of were in the beginning, right? Like basically when the golden era of stuff is suddenly happening, right? Like the tools are there, the internet is grown up enough to share a bunch of tips and to have like Reddit's coming out, like have like places where you can share information, all that stuff. Like that, how has it been seeing the landscape change over 15 years?
Oh boy. You know, I guess I guess I could share just my
Mm-hmm.
perspective on this,
Yeah.
which where it like it wouldn't be very optimistic. Just in that I do feel like it's gotten more toxic, right? Like I don't want to
I,
like bring the tone of things
No,
down,
no,
you
I think
know.
that's important to share. I think it's important for people to
Yeah.
understand, like, there was that any possibility, like new stuff's happening, and then suddenly more people are get more eyeballs on it and more money, and then suddenly toxicity because there's more people looking at this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's put much better than I could. But yeah, I mean, I think you know, near the you saw the cat.
Cat.
Yeah, we're all just like kitty.
Kitty. Yeah.
But yeah, near the start of it, as an indie developer, it really felt like all of the fans they're cheering you on, right? They're excited for you,
Right.
they're happy for you, they think it's cool that you did stuff. Which is still how I feel about myself. I'm like, it's cool that I did stuff. You know, I think I did stuff right. I'll have to bring the cat
Cat
up to say
break.
hi.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, yeah, there she
That is-
is.
She's
She
like,
is old. Her
oh,
name is Nico.
Nico, so sweet.
Oh,
Yeah,
so cute.
she's old and she's grumpy. She has, yeah, she's been part of Scuf Studios this whole time. But yeah, yeah. So at the start, you know, it definitely felt more like there was a spirit of like, you know, you're being cheered on.
New
And
frontier.
now
Yeah.
you definitely get more of a feeling of like people think you're up to something sometimes, you know, or they're like they're
Mhm.
You
like,
look
why
like
would
you're
they
up to
do that
something to
to
me.
Those devs trying to screw
Yeah.
my
They're trying
playtime.
to squeeze money out of me. I'm
Big
sure of
indie,
it.
always trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you
And like,
reskinning? Hmm?
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, and like I mean there have been a lot of like maybe it's, you know, like Kickstarter scams where it's
Oh,
not
yeah,
like
yeah.
is
Mhm.
you know, I
Right.
mean I don't know. Like people
Have scams like that made it harder for you? Like, have you tried the Kickstarter route or the crowdfunding route for anything yet?
I've never tried that route. No, I'm terrified of what would happen if I tried that route
It
because
seems
It
really
seems
scary.
stressful.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Stressful
yeah.
and
it seems
scary because
stressful.
you have to. It's like we were talking in the pre-show about putting on a highly produced dev stream, right? And I kind of feel like if you're doing Kickstarter, you're kind of doing stuff like that all the time. Like you're trying to share stuff with people and like, here's how development's going. If you do this, we'll give you this, and you're sorting out a bunch of things to please the people who are helping you fund it, which makes sense. But I can just imagine how stressful that must be while trying to make a game to also do like
Seems like you have
this
to hire someone to do
PR
that.
kind of
Right.
stuff.
Because
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
the regular salt, plus you got like, hey, you have my money already salt.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Salt and
here's what I
expectations.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Write that
I-
one down. That's good.
Right. Yeah. No, it's like you definitely have a different sort of like a big part of it too for me is I mean with Salt and Sanctuary, people that really found a space in that game where they like things make sense in a certain way in that. And when Salt and Sacrifice came out because it has different mechanics, there are, you know, a number of people who are like, I don't like this direction. Don't do this
Mm.
anymore. And like how do
Make
you
your own
react to that?
fucking game.
You know, how do you react to that, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, like I want to make everyone happy. That's impossible.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to like all my games. That's impossible. Like you know, I mean, you just have to expect that people will be disappointed, and then it becomes a question of like how mean are they going to be about being disappointed,
Mm.
and maybe that's where the toxicity comes in more because now, you know, when they're disappointed, the way they tell you is a little bit more abrasive than
I
Aggressive.
feel like there's a disconnect on the line too. It's like people don't understand that there's a real fucking person on the other side of this comment. You know, like
Yeah,
you'd never
yeah.
say this to their face. You'd only write it because you're like disconnected by
Yeah.
this computer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yep. Here's the face. Please,
Yeah.
please be kind to
Also,
it.
some people just don't write very well, so they don't mean to sound as abrasive. Like my boss is like that. You talk to him in real life, he's the nicest guy, but when he emails me, he seems like the biggest d-bag on the planet. So everybody thinks he hates them. Like no, he just sucks at writing.
No
Do you
punctuation.
watch the
Doesn't
show?
understand how to write.
No punctuation can come across very angry at times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, very
Run on
terse.
sentences.
There's also just so many games available now, like in indie games or AAA, just so many that I feel like people almost feel entitled to just be like, give me what I want from your game because there's so many other games that I can go play. And it's less like I super appreciate what you're doing and you're an indie studio and I want you to succeed and here's my feedback. It's more like do this to make me happy or I'm gonna go play the other
Mm-hmm.
game
Yeah,
that I
could
can just
be.
download.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like really. I am super grateful to to the fans, people who enjoy the game, people
Yeah.
who like wanted different things of the game, and they're like, okay, I mean, I guess I kind of see this. Like, I'm still super grateful that they support the work. That's like
Absolutely.
if there's a message that I'd rather get across, it's that I don't wanna just go on about toxicity. I love making games. I couldn't make games if it weren't for the support of awesome gamers.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
That's the coolest thing about being a gamer right now is that there's so many indie devs out there making games that are on this. I think smaller scale is kind of crazy to say because these games do not feel small of scale to me. Like coming from, like if you compare this to Castlevania 4, this is a way bigger game than like
Oh yeah.
like we used to think is like a huge major release, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
there's so many choices to be so individualized about like exactly what I like is right here, and this guy makes these games just like I like them, and it's wonderful.
right. Yeah, no, I mean, like I grew up on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and yeah, I mean, even going back to like the Dishwasher Dead Samurai, I think it was like 12 levels long, where each level you could beat it in like 5 minutes, and that's the game, and that
Yeah,
was $10, right? Which you compare that to like the days of Super Nintendo, where it was $60 for a game that would be just as long.
Yeah.
or
And
80 or 100. I remember
yeah,
cartridges
they did
costing
that, didn't they?
$100. Yeah,
Like Street Fighter 2 was like 70 or $80.
yeah, and then Street Fighter Championship Edition and the Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2. They didn't
Yeah.
patch games back then. They just sold you a whole other copy.
Yeah. Right.
They turboed
When
it.
you adjust that for inflation, it's something. I mean, it's like $140 or
Oh
something.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
nuts.
Don't even worry about Neo Geo. Those fuckers
Ooh.
raked over the coals.
It's a rich person's
But yeah, I
gaming
mean,
console.
from Dishwasher to Salt and Sacrifice, like the amount of content in Salt and Sacrifice is just. I mean, I don't know. It's like hundreds of times more, and it's still just me making it, but I got better at
Yeah.
just and also, I mean, Dishwasher I made while I was like a student, and so I was supposed to
Right.
be studying, and and now I'm doing it like full time, and that's like I wake up and I just draw and I animate and then I go to bed, and that's my life. And you know what? We're getting to the place now with like stability and balance where we can like step away. But like
Mhm.
at launch, I mean, our folks at Sony, they were like, "Hey, you launched, like time to take a break," and we're like, "Do you know how game development works? We can't
Yeah.
take a break. We
I
have
know.
to be,
Step
yeah, we
away.
have
Don't
to be
answer
there."
any emails. No comments.
Oh man, but yeah, we like pretty much Shane's been watching logs, watching the Discord, and we've just been going through and like, all right, all these funny weird mystery issues, resolve those. Like we had some weapons that were just like totally busted, we fixed
Write
those.
those ones down.
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick.
Give me a quick list.
Oh man, but yeah, it's a lot of work to make a game.
Yeah, of course.
And it's fortunate that I love it, because it's awesome to be able to just make games for a living. But yeah, you get to points where like there are other issues, and you're just like, like I need to step away. I need to step away.
Yeah, is there any part like that has to be done every time you make a game that you just don't like doing? Like for instance, if I make a video, sometimes I just really don't like do it, like stitching the audio together to make it cohesive. It's tedious and it takes forever. And I know I got to do it, but it's part of making the video, which I enjoy making the video. But this part, is there any part like development
localization?
Yeah, localization. Localization. It's actually, I think it's more fun than you'd think, because it's like the game's all, everything's all done, everything's in there, and then when you start, you'll like I made some tools that'll like export everything to a Google sheet, and then they can just put in their text, and then I can just read it back in from the Google sheet, and then you run the game, and you switch to like French. And then you get to see the whole game in French, and it looks really cool. When all the accents are rendering correctly, or
Cool.
Japanese, Korean, simplified, and traditional Chinese, and you're just like it all just works. It's really cool to see it that way. The one I was gonna say that sucks is keyboard remapping. Just stuff like that. It just sucks.
Really?
Yeah. So many like menu functions. Just that's boring.
Yeah.
And you have to do it every game. You have to get it.
Yeah, you got it, right? Otherwise, it's gonna
borderless, full screen.
Is that true with controller remapping as well? Would that be kind of a
same principle?
I'd imagine that'd be tedious. Have to go in. Not only like if you're not inclined to make user interface designs, then to have to do the user interface, you're like, what makes sense to show here?
Right. Yeah. No, there was an issue where
like why so many games don't have controller remapping.
Yeah. Oh,
there's
an issue where like mouse 4 and mouse 5 weren't being read correctly, and it was just like,
which buttons are those even? I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's only 2 buttons on my mouse.
That's funny.
What else? Oh, Sir. Everyone hates Sir all the time.
Yeah.
Always and forever. That's
Sir is when you actually send the game to like Sony and they have to certify it to be on the PlayStation Network.
Yeah, and I can't go into any specifics, but I'm sure you could find any number of developers complaining about any number of certs on any number of platforms, just time and time again. Because and it's important that they keep the quality control at a certain level, but
you wouldn't want something like Black Tiger to end up on PlayStation Network.
Ooh, I don't get that reference.
Is it subjective with cert? Like it could be someone just feeling like, oh, this isn't quite there or something.
It shouldn't be. I don't think,
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I don't think it has, in my experience. But yeah, it's just
like if it comes back and it crashed, obviously that needs to be fixed. They don't want games going out that are randomly crashing.
Yeah.
That's obvious. But like, I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, it has to be fairly rigid, right? And if there are issues that don't pass muster, then but it's just, and again, I can't get into it too much, but it's no fun. I think probably the biggest part of it is like because you've like you look at the whole development as just like a launch trajectory, and this is like coming in for a landing, and you're like, okay, we're coming in for a landing, like we have the landing gear down, everything's all, and then someone's in your ear and they're like, no, you have to refile these forms. you're like, wait, but like we're gonna miss we're gonna go into the ocean if we, but no, the forms have to be refiled. Like you have to do that, and that's
and on top of that, you've been marathoning for like 2-3 years already, so
yeah, and that's the broad cert narrative, without getting into anything specific.
Oh man.
So going from Salt and Sanctuary to Salt and Sacrifice with the break in between, because Salt and Sanctuary came out a long time ago. It came out a while ago now.
2016, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute. What was your break kind of like? Like what were you kind of brainstorming ideas, or were you trying to figure out what you wanted to do for a second game, maybe even a whole new game?
There were prototypes in between. I could still go back to one of them, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. A lot of it was just like post Salt and Sanctuary, the work of like porting it to other platforms was
Right.
and adding new languages. Actually, like I said, the Google Translate fiasco was gradually remedied by adding more languages.
Mm.
So that took some time. And also, yeah, it was definitely like a bit of just like a much needed break. Then I got really into mini painting.
What is
What's
mini
mini
painting?
painting?
Yeah.
painting
Is it
miniatures
exactly what
for
it sounds
D&D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What did
I
you
thought you were
Brother's
just thinking really
he
small
made
painting.
really-
I was thinking, yeah, 1 inch by 1 inch painting of like a
Yeah, little
landscape.
tiny paintings. That's funny. Yeah. But yeah, I got really into painting miniatures, and like building like D&D dungeons in real life using plaster and
Cool.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely like I started a couple of games, I guess, that like one of them was gonna be could have been something. It could still be something. We'll just see where we go. Um, But
Nice.
yeah, it was like definitely taking like that much time between releases was weird. Because back with Xbox 360, it was like 2-year cadence.
Mm.
Smaller games. And I think for Salt and
Was that
Sanctuary,
self-imposed, or was it like that's the platform they want like a 2-year cadence for if you're on their publishing side of
oh, good
things?
question. I think they did kind of, they were like, all right, so yeah, like
We need a
I
follow up. We
wonder.
need content for the platforms, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, and that cadence kind of, it works for me, right? Because otherwise, I do get tired of things and
Mhm.
tired of working on the same thing, and I want to try something new.
Will we
I
ever see a dishwasher too?
I made dishwasher too.
Oh, my bad.
It's on Steam.
Briar.
Yeah, it's called the Dishwasher Vampire Smile is the sequel to Dishwasher Dead Samurai.
This is why we're
Uh,
always eating briar at some point. 'Cause-
And then the game I made after that was called Charlie Murder, and that's also on Steam. And the networking is not good on that. And that just is what it is. And then Salt and Sanctuary, and it's been like a roughly like 2-3 year cadence for each of those. And then after Salt and Sanctuary, it was yeah,
Time
the
for a break.
time going
Yeah.
by, like definitely things felt different. 6 years is a while. So it's nice to be releasing games again.
Yeah.
And yeah, Shannon and I keep kind of going. Like my cat does this thing. She sits with her face right in the monitor, and then she keeps clawing at it. It's like so Blair Witch.
Let me in. Let me in.
So she's doing that right now. So I keep reaching over. So stop.
Caroline?
But yeah, I mean, we keep kind of going just back and forth about like, all right, how much do we, because we want to add more to Salt and Sacrifice.
Mhm.
But how much is the question? And then if not a lot, like, well, what are we going to work on next? And I've got like 2 game ideas that I'd love to explore either of them.
You said
Right
add
now it's just very much deflating from a lot of a lot of stress, a lot of work,
Yeah.
a lot of
Absolutely. Yeah.
You said add more to Salt and Sanctuary, right?
sacrifice.
Sorry. Maybe I heard.
I hope I didn't say Sanctuary, because if I did, then that was my that
You're
was
like,
my
whoa, new
I could have
content.
swore
Come
I
on,
heard
Let's
Sanctuary, and I
go.
was like, I think he meant sacrifice. Maybe I did hear. Maybe you did say
It's
sacrifice.
totally
I just
possible,
heard.
because
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I started this off by saying I never get them confused, and it only took 56 minutes for me to.
Just introducing the thought of getting confused, I feel like, was sabotage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It planted the seed, the brain seed to be like, all right, I'm swapping these. That's cool. Like, do you have I mean, it's probably fluid at this point, but do you have like a development plan for future updates for Sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, mostly like right now we're just focusing on stability.
Of course,
But
yeah. New release.
yeah. There are like some good item ideas that could help with like PvP balance. Any weapon that's rage based, there's no good way to generate rage. That's a pretty common bit of feedback. So something like stab yourself, generate rage, take some HP damage for. I mean that works. That'd be good.
Cool.
Stuff like that, or like something that could use like ammo for group healing, or things like that. That could be pretty easy to add. In terms of like larger content, I mean that kind of comes down to just how we're where we want to go next. I'd love to add more just more kind of dungeony stuff where it's just like more of like a classic dungeon romp for those who
Mm.
don't like mages, but you know. And then
Scratch
you could
that
do the like a
scratch that
dungeon romp
rogue
with your
dungeon.
friends. Sorry.
Scratch that roguelite dungeon generator type of itch that you had in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know that. I've thought about that, doing like a Chalice Dungeons type thing, but
Ooh,
that's
interesting.
Okay.
that's a lot to try to get right. And then
Yeah.
even Chalice Dungeons, people were like, yeah, they're for the amount of work that went into them. And I totally
True.
like Bloodborne. It's the only game I platinumed on ever, I
It's a
think,
good game to platinum.
and it involves hours and hours of Chalice Dungeons. I didn't really mind them, but yeah, I mean they weren't a hit with everyone, right? Sort of like
Well,
mages.
they're like the challenge dungeons were like Bloodborne adjacent. It's like some people, if platinuming it, obviously, you have to look at the entire thing. But a lot of people just played Bloodborne in the story, like the golden line of it, and the Chalice dungeons felt like here's some additional stuff, additional content that you could do, but it's optional. You get some good stuff, but you could just play the game without them. So I think that's kind of why that perspective exists with the challenge
Yeah.
dungeons, and also there were some extremely difficult ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one where it was like the amygdala where you had to have you'd
Yeah.
have half health, and it
Yep.
would one shot you
It
anytime, and
is,
that was
Yeah.
brutal. Yep.
oh, bless whoever I was able to summon that was able to get me through that. 'Cause oh man, but yeah, I mean stuff like that. Like I would love to do that in Salt and Sacrifice, but obviously it's not. This is so remotely far from any sort of commitment. But
Yeah.
it would be cool though. I
Good,
wouldn't
yeah.
be against that.
I imagine to do dungeon randomizer types or like rogue stuff properly to where you're happy with it. I feel like it takes just exponentially more work to make that
Yeah.
happen than to actually just craft a level, handcrafted, right?
Yeah, I think there's like an allure to procedural generation that kind of overpromises.
Mm-hmm.
As a
Mm.
developer, you're like, I can make things that make things, and I no longer have to make things anymore because they just make themselves. But as a as a user, like people are really good at recognizing patterns. So you
Yeah.
pretty much recognize the pattern of the dungeon, and then it becomes the same thing again because you're just
Yeah.
you're just seeing the same pattern playing out in a different way. Um, and I
Yeah.
mean,
In order to hide those patterns, you really have to like do a lot of extra, sub adjustments to the pattern to try to cover up the lines essentially of someone seeing the pattern. So it just seems like a lot
Right.
more work to do it properly.
Yeah, and then it also gets to a point where you just have to be really clever, and I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm that clever. I mean, just like there are ways to just sort of brute force yourself through problems, and then there are points where it's just like,
Yeah.
it's only as good as the algorithms behind it, and if you can't improve on whatever's making the pattern, I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
it would be neat, but yeah,
Yeah.
it probably like if I did some sort of procedural generation thing, you'd be like, okay, yeah, this is the layout would every layout would resemble another just in terms of how
Yeah.
how the pattern plays out.
Yeah. Uh, Blazing Sun in chat also asked earlier. I think it was Blazing Sun. What got you into
Yeah.
art? And I was curious about that.
Oh, what's the
But
question?
what got you into art, like in general?
Oh,
Like,
I ever since I was a kid, I would always just love
nice.
drawing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah, and that's sort of like the um that was my career trajectory. Is like I loved drawing, I loved music, but I was never very very particularly good at either. Found out if you make a game, then you can put your art and you can put your music in the game, and for some reason, people are more inclined to think it's good. It's all
It's official. That's great.
Oh man.
I think most people I've spoken to who see kind of the Sultan Sanctuary look of the way the game visually looks are always really like it. It's got this kind of softness to it in this really dark, harsh world, which is kind of cool.
Kind of a painterly thing going on, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but yeah, I have no you know it might show, but I have no like art training, right? I just always have been very much a doodler, and
That's great. I
yeah,
think
I love drawing.
gives a lot of people inspiration. Like don't let whatever thing you think is holding you back hold you back. Like
You,
do it,
I
right?
actually I had a kind of weird insight about that. So here and there I'd see feedback that's like, not going back to negative feedback. I'd see feedback, especially from like larger news outlets that are like, the art feels like it's made by like a college kid or like a broody high school kid or something. And the weird insight of that is what that might mean is people will draw art through high school or college and then they give it up,
Mm.
and like otherwise why the association, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason I got to keep doing it and everyone's like, okay, it's good enough, we'll play the game. But mostly if you're at that level that I'm at, you've already given it up by then, or if you're in game development, you hire a better artist, or
Mm.
but you don't keep making art because it's high school art,
Interesting. Yeah.
right? Isn't that kind of, I don't know, that kind
No,
of
it's
struck me as a weird
that's a weird
take.
weird slight. Weird like
Yeah.
It is weird.
backhanded compliment in a way. Like right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't read reviews anymore. Imagine that. It's just yeah, like the weird backhanded ones are they stick with you
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
for years. And yeah, I don't need that. Um,
The battle scars of being a game developer, right?
yeah,
Being an artist.
yeah. Trying
Yeah.
trying to
So
be better.
I assume you haven't checked out many reviews of Salt and Sacrifice then? Or
So like the company we're using for PR, they send me the good ones, which I'm so grateful for. Oh geez, I have a Google alert set up for it, like it's set up for Salt and Sanctuary review, and it was set up that way years ago, and I just kind of left it on. And like the kind of neat thing over the last couple of years is like, like say like every 6 months or year or so, like another game would come out, and I would get an alert because the game would be like, like say if it was like Blasphemous, and then somewhere in the review they're like, games
Mm.
like Salt and Sanctuary and so have done, and it was just like, oh cool, everyone like I've made a game with enough of a name that it gets referenced in a review for another 2D side scroller. So I just had that alert up, and like the day after launch, I get this Google like this dump of reviews, and I was just like, oh, and like I read a few headlines where I was just like, oh, God, I can't, there. It's hard when you spend so much just time and effort,
Yeah.
and like there are just these depths of emotion that go into producing, and then like you see a headline that's just like, eh. Yeah, I mean, and like on
Yeah.
the other hand, it's like if you don't like the game, like just please be honest. I mean, that's fine. So there's no solution, right? It's
Yeah.
the only solution is don't read the review. um but yeah, I mean, there were a lot of like really positive reviews too, but it's just I don't know. At this point, I can't read the negative ones anymore.
Yeah.
I
I
guess
mean,
from playing the first game, people probably pigeonholed it into this like it's 2D Dark Souls. Like that's what it is. That's what we expect now. And then with Salt and Sacrifice, like you said, it's this kind of Monster Hunter Souls Metroidvania experience. So it is different from the first one. It's a different experience. So I can imagine that got some people that really loved the first one a little upset.
Right.
mm,
Yeah, and it's funny. Shane's been sort of translating some reviews for me into just like here's the
Feedback.
gist without the hurtful words. He's like a lot of reviews are like, if you like this game, you'll like it. Otherwise, you won't like it. I mean, obviously, like very
Ah,
the very reduced
thanks for
approach
the
there.
super
consumer
general.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny
It's
though. Monster
Tautology
Hunter.
Club.
I feel like Monster Hunter does fall quite a bit into that ethos, even though it's such a general like statement. But I feel like a lot of people are like that about the Monster Hunter style loop of hunting something and crafting. Like if you're into hunting and crafting something, you're gonna be all over it. you're going to gobble it up. But if you get bored from doing one thing and then expecting to do it again, then it's clearly going to be a turnoff for some people. So even though it's like harsh to categorize things like that, I see the comparison.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah. But also I was going to say that I think like what's really difficult about, what you're talking about and the art and all that is learning how to disconnect yourself from it, because I'm sure at certain points it can drive yourself mad, and that's why you don't want to consume all that feedback, because it's so connected to what you did, right? Like you spent years of your life working on these projects, so it's tough to not feel like it's a reflection of you, right? When you read
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
You take it very personally,
Mhm.
and the whole time you wish that it was not that way. I mean, it's you don't choose to take it personally, and if you could just press a button to not take it personally, you would.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's
Yeah. That's
um
how do you disconnect from it easily to be able to accept all that feedback, right?
yeah.
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 So I've felt very 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 just like I'm doing the wrong thing by avoiding reviews. If you don't listen to the criticism, how do you improve? But maybe it's like once I'm farther away from this, farther
Mhm.
away from launch, and I can kind of take a step back and reflect and be like, okay, yeah, that was a good point. Here's where we went wrong. Here's what we did right. Um, but when it's so close, when you're still just like
So fresh. Yeah.
just yeah, that's
And lots of
it's
people are still
harder.
playing through and experiencing the first playthrough.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, lots of people are really liking it. There's a lot of lore diving going on right now because there's
Mhm.
lore in the game. Um, and we have like a looking for group on the Discord. PvP is we probably still have to do a lot to keep the balance going. At
Sure.
launch we had there was this bow that would release a cloud of spores that was supposed to do this fungal rot buildup, and it would just cause like a stagger every frame, and it was like so then everyone was using it, and so I played Destiny when Prometheus lens was broken.
Nice.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah,
Oh
sure.
And
yeah.
like
Mhm.
playing it, it was like, oh, this is really neat. Like, wouldn't it be cool to be on the side of the one with all the levers who's controlling this? Who's like, whoa, we screwed up. Like, whoops, all laser tag. You know what though? Everyone just enjoy. We're gonna do that. This is great, right? So like as a gamer, I was like, that'd be so cool to be on that side. As the developer who released the game with the broken bow that just staggers everyone, it's not that fun. It's not that fun to be on that side. You still feel like you're just letting everyone down.
Oh
Um,
man.
but yeah, and I mean, being a game where you can with PvP elements, when there are strategies that are just super overpowered, it like becomes a question of like, all right, is the game broken, or is that just like a valid strategy?
Right.
Like Rivers of Blood and Elden Ring, right? Like
Mhm.
that feels that sucks to get killed by that, right? But I mean, they left it in, and it's um there's some intent to it, right? But
Right.
who's to say? I don't know. I mean, Elden Ring. I think I don't play a lot of PvP in it, but like I've gotten some good kills in there. But anytime I get invaded by a Rivers of Blood guy, I'm like, this is just there's a problem
You're
here,
like, nope,
you
nope,
know.
nope, nope.
But
Nope.
yeah, being on the side of the to be able to like pull the levers and everything, it's weird.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
I
especially
don't
for
know if I was prepared
PvP.
for it.
Especially for PvP, because
Yeah.
like you're handling so many hats that normally a PvP game would have a separate department that's handling that stuff, right? With the
Yeah.
balance and all that. So that's got to be additionally taxing on top of all the other things that are happening as an indie developer. But then to have PvP balancing on top of that's got to be like, you're doing 3D chess.
Yeah. And I mean, being connected to the community has been really good for that. We see feedback, and like if it's if I mean, usually it's like if it's a lot of people are saying the same
Right.
thing, it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah,
If
we
it's
screwed
really
up there.
broken, then a lot of people
Yeah.
mention it really
Yeah.
fast.
So
Yeah.
so like stuff about just harvests for replenishing flasks, that you get a minimum now, so you never have to like just farm for flasks for PvP, because that
Nice.
was a big piece of feedback. The one thing we're looking at now is making it so like rage weapons aren't completely useless in PvP, because you have to build up rage by attacking. So it's like, all right, well, what if you either spawn in? I'm thinking we're just gonna make it so you spawn in with maxed out rage, and then maybe an item to regenerate rage. So yeah, I mean, like there are a lot of good ideas. I think a lot of like charm type things are, they're not as good as they should be. So yeah, we're just tweaking things and iterating and yeah, as long as it's a constructive conversation, it's kind of neat to like implement some changes and then
Cool.
I mean, best case scenario is like you just don't hear anything. You do a change and no one's like, yeah, good change. It's just like you don't hear anything. But when there's a problem, you hear about that.
True.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, it's just every iteration. Like we're up to version 1007 now, I think. So that's seven patches worth.
Nice.
And every version there are fewer complaints, fewer log issues, and yeah, it's coming along.
Very
I
cool.
We're
think
almost done with the game.
No, almost there.
Almost done, yeah.
I think from my friends that are playing through, the kind of biggest feedback I heard from them was having to travel to the hub world to level up, which is fine, but then they didn't like that when they went back to where they were, they start right at the beginning. And even though they got the checkpoints, like they can't kind of teleport between the checkpoints, or it doesn't take you back to your most recent checkpoint. So I think that's really the feedback that I heard, but they were loving like mage hunts and they were loving
Oh, cool. Yeah,
most of it.
Yeah.
that was a thing. And I think Shane will feel vindicated on this, because yeah, he wanted it so that when you teleport in, you can choose the location. And I probably will relent. So for one thing, it's just changing the UX flow so that you can choose the
Got to be
destination.
able to select all those. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it's not a huge issue. It's just more UX.
It's one of
work.
those things where suddenly you have to add control mapping. You're like,
I don't want to do that.
Like yeah, it's like input mapping all over again. The other thing that like this I guess so I really wanted it to be that like these hub worlds are once you start like opening up shortcuts, like everything becomes so close to each other, because what was like a long path to get from point A to point B, now it's like, well, there's like zip lines here and there, and there's like a ladder, that was the hope. And yeah, I mean, it's like it worked in some areas, it didn't work in other areas, and
Mhm.
yeah, maybe that might be the kind of thing where if we do like a large, like a more ambitious content update, that would be like the 2.0 change is checkpoint warping.
Cool.
But yeah,
That
like
or
I
for
said, it's
people leveling up, like not in the hub world, I think would also achieve like both things, right? Because it's when people are like, "Oh, I killed a mage, cool! I got a bunch of salt, I'm gonna go spend it," and then they're like, "Oh, wait, I have to start all
Run
the way
back to
from the
the
beginning
hub,
of the area." And
climb the
right.
ladder,
yeah,
jump up to the top area.
Yeah,
like I don't want to climb that ladder.
yeah.
Too
Maybe there are too many ladders. Yeah, like I know Demon Souls and I think Dark Souls 2 also did that, where you could only level up in a hub. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's
Bloodborne's like that.
you're
You have to go back to the dream world, right?
You have
yeah.
To talk to
Yep.
the doll.
Yeah. So that was that logic. And I imagine like if you did direct checkpoint warping, the hub leveling would seem a lot less of a hassle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are good things to act on.
Nice.
Yeah, fixing the
Very
game.
cool. That's awesome. Well, it is. It's past our usual. We usually do hour long for the episode, so we probably should wrap things up here pretty soon.
Gotcha.
It's been a pleasure talking about game development and
It's super
your
interesting.
amazing catalog of indie titles and 15 years of experience. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Thank you
Seriously.
so much
Yeah.
for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always it's weird to reflect and realize that I am what they call a veteran of indie development because I still don't feel like I know what
You're
I'm
like,
doing.
hold up.
But you
At
know,
what point did you become a veteran?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's unfortunate that a lot of people who get into indie normally can't stay in indie because maybe the game they release doesn't end up doing that great and they can't afford to keep going with their own studio and then they go and work, at kind of a regular studio.
Working for the
So
man.
work for the man. Yeah.
That-
So being an indie dev for this long is pretty incredible.
yeah.
Yeah,
Really
That's
yeah.
an
No,
amazing achievement.
it's weird. It's weird. I haven't like it's been 15 years of I'm wearing pajamas right now. It's been 15 years of
Nice.
me wearing pajamas and working. And my cat is like right below she's like right here and on the desk between the webcam.
Co-developer, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that's been my life and it's been weird. But I'm so grateful that you had me on and let me talk some dev stuff. And,
It was
Yeah.
really
No,
fun.
yeah, I super appreciate you making time to come on. It's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. We really appreciate it. Is there any final thoughts you want to share with people? Any social media type of stuff? You mentioned a Discord. Maybe let people know
oh
about the
yeah, yeah.
Discord if they want to hop in and
Yeah, yeah.
say what's up.
Yeah, it's discord.gg/Ska Studios.
SKA.
SKA Studios. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And the Twitter is Ska Studios on Twitter too.
Cool.
Oh, I have an Instagram that I haven't used in so many years. It's got like 1,000 followers. Like people still message me here and there. Specifically only to tell me to put Charlie Murder on Xbox Series X. That's the only reason they contacted me on Instagram. And yeah,
That's amazing.
I don't
Hey,
understand
at least
it.
they like the game, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they really like it.
Salt and Sacrifice is available now. It's available on Epic Game Store, PlayStation 5, and PlayStation 4. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Yeah.
Go get it.
Yeah, go get it.
And also
Go
play
get
the
it.
first one. Play the first
Yeah,
one
play
too.
it.
The first one is
Salt and
incredible.
Sanctuary and Salt
Yeah.
and Sacrifice.
Play 'em
Yeah,
both.
if you haven't already. Absolutely. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, James. We really appreciate you coming on and saying hey. So
Yeah,
have a
thank you.
great rest of your Memorial Day because it is Memorial Day.
It
That's right.
is.
All right, that's the episode. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out, for listening. Shout out to our Patreon members and our Twitch subs as well for supporting the shows here on DCP. SideQuest is every Monday, in case you were wondering, and DCP Live Thursdays, and we have Retro Slot and Firing Range sporadically throughout the month when those do become
No, new
available.
retro slot tomorrow night, actually.
Oh, tomorrow. There you go.
Finally.
There
it's
you go.
happening. All right. Thanks for hanging
Top
out.
Gear 3000.
Oh, nice.
Super Nintendo.
Top Gear 3000. Nice.
3000.
Yeah.
It's like
Everything
1,000
was
better than Top Gear.
Wasn't it like F-Zero 3000 was the sequel to F-Zero? You remember that?
I don't remember. I don't
Yeah,
remember the
maybe
name,
I'm
but I
thinking
just
things
remember.
wrong. I feel like F-Zero was a 3000 title. Anyways, that's the episode. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.